Hi, everybody. We don't have a quorum quite yet. Give us just another minute or two, please. Okay, we're on.
All right, good evening and welcome to the, oh my gosh, May 13th, 2025 Zoning Board of Appeals regular monthly meeting for the Village of Austining. This is a public hearing that is quasi judicial. We're using a hybrid format for today's meeting and all of our meetings, with the public invited to attend either in person or online via Zoom. Members of the public attending online may use the raise hand feature at the appropriate time if you'd like to make a comment. And if you are attending by phone only, you can press *9 to raise your hand. Comments may be emailed anytime during the meeting to plan@villageofaustining.org. We will receive those right up here if you have any comments. This meeting will be recorded and a transcript of the meeting will be available at a later date. So the two ground rules is that when you come up to speak, if you're in person, please state your name and address, and you must be signed in on our sign-in sheet. And please limit your comments to the matter which is the subject of the hearing. All right, could we do a roll call of the board, please?
We sure can. Michael Spall.
Present.
Brian Grano.
Present.
Corey Black. Present. And Chair Aberrizak.
Present. All right, let's get started with the approval of the minutes from the April 8th, 2025 meeting. I believe we had everyone there, so
Yeah.
we'll all vote on that. Could I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes, Michael. Seconded, Brian.
All right, if there are no objections to approving last month's minutes, minutes are so approved. So moving on to new business of the board, we have ZBA 09-2025, 16 Lafayette Avenue. Applicant is seeking area variances for front yard setback for proposed side yard addition and side yard setback for proposed rear yard deck. So I'm assuming we'll just look at the plans first.
Who do we know?
Is there anybody online? If you could raise your virtual hand, or at the bottom of the screen, if you hover over the bottom, there will be a raise hand feature. This is for 16 Lafayette Avenue. All right, so we're gonna come back to this one. We'll let you go next if you have figured out what you need to do. If you're having trouble, email plan@villageofossining.org and maybe we can
Email J Kane at Village of Austin.
email J Kane, that's JKANE @villageofossining. Oh, there we
See a
go.
hand. All right, iPhone 4, I'm going to bring you over as a panelist. If in fact you are affiliated with 16 Lafayette, please turn on your camera and unmute.
Evening, everybody can hear me? Sorry, I couldn't find that hand on my cell phone, but I did. Good evening, everybody. My name is Gabrielle Salmon. I'm the architect for 16 Lafayette. And we are seeking tonight 2 variances for side setback and a front yard setback. We have a existing structure that is in non-conforming use, and plus the lot is kind of trapezoid. It's not straight lines, so whatever we're touching on the left side, there's addition about 9 by 18. We trying to align the original house with the new additions, so therefore we are about 19 feet 1 inch. And on the site, we building deck to the back, which is about 6'8". So on the side, we're gonna need 1.2 variance, and in the front, we need a 10 feet 1 inch variance.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions from the board before we open public hearing? I was trying to find in the plans. I have the A100 and the T100.
We take a closer look at the 10.5.
Yeah.
Variance. What it looks like.
You on this plan?
Yeah, either that or a
Yeah,
photograph.
that's a site plan, shows you the setback required. And with addition, I mean, we're building it to the right side. We have plenty of room. There's no issue. However, the front is not within the setback required, and the side is not. So these are conditioned due to the structure, existing structure being non-conforming use.
And I'm just looking at the photos to look at the homes in the neighborhood. Looks like yours is what is that called when you have identical homes all built one another?
Well, it's exactly what it is right now. We're not going taller than what it is. Basically, if you look at the front elevation, there is a little porch that's covered. We're creating a balcony there, and if you could look at the elevation, I'll tell you which one. Yeah, there you go.
So based on what I'm seeing on that street, I just went to Google Street View for a second because the photos didn't show the neighborhood. It looks like, I don't know if this is hard to see. These houses are very close together.
Right.
Let's bring it up so everyone can see it.
Yeah,
Yeah, there should be. I mean, this house is kind of.
With that addition, as you view the house, this addition will be to the right side.
it'll be.
Correct,
But
correct. It's to the right, and we're not going over existing. There you go.
So if you look at, go to the other
Yeah.
side of the street,
Yes,
in this neighborhood. These are all very close, like,
very close.
there's a
okay,
few that are
gotcha.
locked in, they can't expand to the size.
Right.
And if you go to the corner one that we're looking at, 16 Lafayette,
Right,
they have a ton of space on the
Okay,
side, and
gotcha.
they're gonna extend into that gravel
okay.
area right there. So for,
And
Doesn't,
there's a paper street next to it.
oh, it looks like a real street.
Yeah, that's a paper street.
Okay, no, I mean, that's.
in terms of, yeah, I agree. I don't have any questions.
No questions, now I understand that they have the extra land there, it's fine.
All right, could I get a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion to open the public hearing, Brian.
Seconded, Corey?
All right, if there are no objections to open the public hearing. Public hearing is now open. Is there anyone else here other than the applicant to speak on 16 Lafayette Avenue? Going once. Sold. All right, can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close, Brian.
Seconded, Michael.
All right, hearing no objections, public hearing is closed. Could we run through the 5 factors, please?
Absolutely. So as the board knows, in determining whether to grant the applicant's request for a variance, you must balance the benefit to the applicant against any detriments to the health, safety, and welfare of the community. And in doing so, you're required to evaluate 5 different factors. The first factor the board must consider is whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood, or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by granting the area variance.
I don't think so, both. This lot, I mean, Corey made a point to me on the side before that it might have been 2 lots previously, but now it's 1 lot, so it's larger than the lots nearby. So I think it's not gonna be a detriment in so much as it affects any of the nearby properties.
And even in terms of the side yard, all these houses are so close together. I mean,
And this is moving away from the other homes, so going to an open street corner.
well, are we doing that piece one?
Both, for
Okay,
your
yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
So just for the board's benefit, the side addition requires a front yard setback variance and the rear deck requires a side yard setback variance.
Because
So
of the
that
corner.
addition, that side yard addition is conforming us to the side yard, but since the house is not conforming us to the front yard setback, and it lines up, it needs that front yard setback variance.
And just to make sure these numbers are accurate, I don't want to get in a position where we would approve or deny the wrong numbers.
Yeah, yes, they are. We've worked with the surveyor. I mean, there is a survey, you could look at it.
So the numbers in the zoning worksheet, as in terms of the variances, are correct. I believe, Gabriel, that the building department reached out asking for clarification on the existing impervious coverage. It looks like there's a lot of gravel on the site, and under the zoning code, gravel is considered impervious. Were you able to check that?
Well, he's gonna remove that. I think he was parking his car in there.
Is he replacing it with anything?
Well, once we're gonna put the rechargers in the ground, we're gonna take it all up. If you could look at the storm water system,
One thing I was,
it's right under the entire area.
where I was going with that basically is if the gravel wasn't considered in the existing, in the proposed, to make as a condition of approval, just resubmitting the calculated figures.
Well, we just will write that there will be grass on the, on the left side.
I feel it's a good recommendation from council, which is having the, if this is approved tonight on condition of approval, just making sure that the impervious coverage is accurately notated. And that would be just checking in with Joe in the planning office.
All right, so we'll revise that and make sure that we mention that there's the gravel over rechargers.
And that's not so that you have
I'm
to.
sorry, there's not the grass over rechargers. Sorry about that.
Thank you for that.
Okay.
Next up.
So the next factor is whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance.
I don't think so.
No, I mean, the front of their house is already existing into the setback and the side is the same.
And based on the configuration of the lot and that it looks to be double the width of the others, I don't think it's as much of a determinative factor because it's going into already open space, whereby the other properties don't have that same open space.
Next factor is whether the requested variances are substantial.
I think for the addition is the 10.9.
10.5, yeah.
Yeah, 10.5. I think it's numerically substantial, but not impact.
In line with the neighborhood.
Whether the proposed variances will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood district.
No, pending the conditional approval of following up on the impervious surface coverage. Just getting the right numbers and making sure it's actually impervious. Or impervious.
And finally, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which is relevant to the board's decision but unnecessarily determinative.
I think it's 50-50 because they don't need to do this, but at the same time, based on the configuration of these original lots, it is not self-created.
I just want to say on the picture, it has a 6-foot fence on the corner. Is that, I know it's a corner lot. Is that within code? I don't know. It's just as an like observation. I think it makes sense to share.
I don't think that's a real street, it's a paper street. I will ask him, because he got permits for the fence.
That would be Joe.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
We don't issue any permits for fencing. They probably installed it. You're allowed to install the fence, but it is a paper street, which is kind of like a private road. But you're not supposed to have a 6-foot fence in the front yard. So some of that fence along that side is still considered in the front yard should be reduced down to the same size of the fence that runs along the sidewalk.
That's not really within the board's purview tonight to look at.
Yeah. Good catch.
Yeah, but the catch frame.
Well, we could mark it
follow
on,
up with the homeowner about that to get the correcting.
we could remove 2 feet, that's okay.
You're remembering back to some interesting discussions sometime. Great, so I think that's the 5 factors. Based on what I heard, it looks like we're looking for a motion to approve. If I could get a motion to approve
With
this
the
application.
condition,
With the condition that they review the impervious surface coverage percent and just reach out to Joe to make sure that that's accurate. And then he signs
Also,
off on that.
Look at the fence, so.
Look
the
at the
fence
lot.
isn't related to this decision. in relation
Yeah,
to
we
the
can't do the
condition.
fence in this decision. But Joe
Joe,
now knows.
I'm working on the fence part, but it's separate from this application, but I'll get on that.
Just need a motion to approve
Motion to approve the other application.
with the conditional approval. Yep.
Seconded, Corey?
All right. Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Okay, Michael Spall,
Yes.
Brian Granoff,
Yes.
Corey Block,
Yes.
Chair Abarissa.
Yes. All right, you know the drill. Just wait for the paperwork from Joe's office, the signed resolution, and then we're good to go.
Thank you very much, everybody. Have a
Good
good evening.
Good evening.
Next up, we have ZBA 11/2025. This is for 131 Spring Street. Applicant is seeking a parking variance for the number of off-street parking spaces provided. Just make sure to state your name and address or your affiliation.
And sign in when you're through with this. Okay.
Can I sign now?
You may,
Mhm.
you may.
Hi, everyone. My name is Stetson Hunjin, coming from 131 Spring Street, Austining, New York, 10562,
Thank you.
where me and my fiancée Natalia have lovingly restored this home for the past 4.5 years back to its original state as a 2-family home. We have not changed any footprint of the home. It's only been interior work. In fact, all the work was already done for us. Someone just decided to turn it back into a single family at some point. So we are here seeking a parking variance to allow Joe to approve us for our 2-family home at the building department.
So just because I don't know if you've been before the boards before, but parking is one of the biggest focuses when people come to meetings. It's been a somewhat contentious issue.
Yes.
And I know your home and I know the street you're on. I drive by that house all the time.
It's a
Um,
beautiful house.
it is.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I also know that as a one-family home, non-conforming pre-existing, it didn't have 2 parking spots, so you're down 2 there, but that's pre-existing. And so by turning it into 2-family, there's now 2 more spots that are needed. And in your application, it's for 0, so we're going from 4 required, even though 2 of those are already
So
pre-existing.
I want to make a clarification. That was, when we reviewed this initially, that was how we considered it.
Yeah.
But because it is a non-conforming, one family has to parking, they're allowed to have those 2 spaces. So the variance request here is really for 2 spaces where 0 provided, because
Exactly.
they're entitled to those 2 spaces no matter what.
Yep, they're entitled to them, but the impact is still relevant.
Yeah,
Our update to Jamie was for 4 spaces as
so,
advised by her.
yes.
Yeah,
And
Okay.
we've since discussed, and if the board does approve this application, we'll just ask you to resubmit with the 2 versus the 4. But we'll discuss
that
that.
way, if it gets approved, you don't have to come back before the board again. It's just paperwork with those
But
office.
that's not an issue.
I'm glad to
tonight.
hear that because it didn't make sense to request 4 spots when it's a single family home. We would only be adding 2.
Well, it's a,
Because it's 2 per unit, and
2
so
per
if it were a new
Correct.
use, you'd be required to provide 4, but since it's non-conforming, you can keep the
Yeah.
2,
it's based on the number of
Right, yeah.
households, not what the home looks like or what it's called. Yeah, so if there's 2 households, 2 units, it's 2 per unit. That's why there was some confusion.
Cool. Okay.
anyways.
Yep. I don't know what to ask about this one.
I mean, we've had something like this on, on Yates before. Yeah, we forced that applicant to do a parking study, but I don't know if that's necessary in this case. Is there some way we can determine whether or not there's enough additional on-street parking that this gentleman can go forward with this project?
Is this permitted parking or park as you can? Do you know?
That I do.
Are you talking about parking on the street?
Yeah.
No, if for parking on the street, you have to get an overnight parking sticker. You have to apply for that through the village, the finance department, and you have to apply to get a sticker, and then it's kind of a free for all. You have to find your parking on the street. You just won't get it. You wouldn't get a ticket if you purchased the sticker and you're parking overnight.
But Joe, I don't see any driveways for any of these houses on this side of the street.
Right.
That's correct. There are no,
Correct, which is one of the issues on Spring Street, why you have a lot of overnight parking there, because a lot of the homes right now are already pre-existing non-conforming that don't have parking and have no option to park other than have to park on the street and get an overnight parking sticker. But those are pre-existing non-conforming situations already with these homes.
So my personal view, based on just thinking about this for a second, is it's not feasible to ask him to rip up the front yard and put 2 spots there. It's probably also very expensive and it's not in line with prior decisions we've made. All the homes nearby are facing similar situations, existing non-conforming. I don't know how many of them are multifamily, but that's not necessarily relevant. Do you have anything?
It's a single family district.
No, it's a 2-family district. It's currently a single-family home, so they're doing an interior reconfiguration to provide a second dwelling unit, which they're allowed to do as of right.
Okay.
So the parking variance comes from adding that additional unit, which adds 2 spaces
Yeah.
to the street.
Yeah, I mean, to add to that, like, the city or the village has zoned it for 2-family and there are no other places to park. I think that's putting an undue burden on people.
Well, I will tell you this, it used to be up until the last couple of years that when you were converting a single family home into a 2-family home in a 2-family zoning district, it used to be a conditional use and you'd have to go to the planning board, and the planning board the condition would be if you have enough off-street parking. And if you didn't, they would send you over to the zoning board to attempt to get a variance, but you had to go to the planning board because it was considered a conditional use. Then we changed that law to say, well, why do you need the planning board to tell you need a variance for parking? If staff can easily determine you're in a 2-family zone district, you need to create if you're gonna make a two-family home, you need 4 parking spaces, and if you can't provide that, you go to the zoning board. There was no need to go to another step to the planning board to basically send you to the same board as the zoning board.
Amen.
The condition that was always made for the purpose of this for many years was all about the parking. So if you could not provide enough parking on for off-street parking, essentially you couldn't get a conditional use to make a two-family.
Use anymore. So
I don't have any questions, any more questions about this application. Mike? I see that stare.
I'm thinking that whether or not a parking study, how much they cost, but would be appropriate here. I hate to put 2 additional cars on that street, and there may not be enough room for cars at present. So, but that's the only really solution to really have. You can't take the front lawn. Nobody else has got driveways, so I mean, it's really the only way you could possibly do this. And there is also a guarantee 2-family houses in the area, maybe even 3-family houses here. What's your thinking on that? That's a chair.
I'm torn because we've asked
Mhm.
for that in kind of sticky situations where parking wasn't the only.
you asked for that in a use variance
Yeah.
situation, which is, it's not at all analogous to this.
Yeah.
Bring
I do, yeah, thank you.
And I believe that was for a 4 or 5 family and a 2-family, so the impacts would have been a lot
And
greater.
I do hear that. We've had
Okay.
that on Camp Woods Road. We've had that on many other streets, because parking comes up all the time. But I feel bad putting a homeowner in a situation where to maximize their investment and create more housing in the village. But as of right, we're gonna say, you need more spots, but we're not gonna give you more spots. And so that's where,
Well, yeah, it's definitely a catch-22 here.
Yeah.
And
and
The
it's
only
different.
the only
than-
reason why I brought that idea was that really seems to be the only thing that you possibly do.
But then if we run it to
Yeah.
its conclusion, if there wasn't enough parking, what would we do? Because I feel like we know that already.
Yeah, no, I think that there probably isn't enough parking,
But I also know the village is doing some things like,
Mhm.
that development that is it in June, starts next month?
Yeah.
And
There, right, so downhill quite a ways from this location, there's gonna be.
But
Right.
things
municipal
like
spaces.
that,
Yeah,
where
yeah, we're trying to invest in more municipal parking.
that's,
Adjoining
PODs
the
become-
downtown, yes.
And it's of certain people's opinions that the market will take care of it a little bit, you know, like if they need a spot, they'll find a spot. If there are no spots, they'll buy an e-bike, they'll do whatever they need to do. We need housing. in the
I've stated my personal biases
So-
before,
Have
which
you,
I have to remove.
Let's move
Any
on.
issues with regard to parking now, both you and your.
We've lived on this street for 4.5 years. Before that, we were on Croton Dam Road
Yeah.
for 5 years. We had our own parking spot there. The worst that it is for us is 2 blocks
Okay.
and 5 minutes.
But you're finding a spot there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, finding a spot. We went for about 2 years without a permit, just because we were,
Uh-oh.
Oh, don't tell.
Yeah, you don't.
oh, that's okay. We got fined plenty.
Okay, so you paid your
Yeah,
dues.
yeah, we paid more than our dues. We finally smartened
Right.
up. But other than that, yeah, it's been okay.
And is it your intention when you do rent this additional space within your home? That you'll tell them that they're gonna get two parking spots or 1 parking spot?
I didn't think about that, but they would have to apply for their own on-street parking permit as they wish, and I think it would be up to that
So the-
deciding board to
Yeah,
approve it
so
or-
that's not a property-based thing, that's an individual homeowner or
Yeah.
household thing.
Okay.
And being so close to the train station, honestly, like we
Yeah.
both commute by train and we walk most of the time, so.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Anybody before we open public hearing?
Just regarding parking, it's very close to Nelson Sitting Park, so there's a lot of spaces there.
That's
So,
true.
Just want to add that.
Right.
Thank you, Brian. Again, code enforcement. Can I get a motion to open public hearing?
Motion open, Cory.
Seconded, Brian.
All right, if there are no objections to opening the public hearing. Public hearing is now open. Is there anybody here to speak on 131 Spring Street who is not the applicant? Online? All right, can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing, Brian.
Seconded, Michael.
All right, hearing no objections, public hearing is now closed. Will we run through the 5 factors, please?
Sure. So this is for 2 spaces. And the first factor the board must consider is whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the variance.
I think possibly based on using up what little space there is left. However, I think it's mitigated by the fact that there are no alternatives.
And there are plenty of other streets and stuff like that. You might just have to walk
Nelson Sitting Park.
another minute or two.
Whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the variance.
Definitely not feasible.
Whether the requested area variance is substantial.
Numerically, yes, and I think impact a little bit, but not that much, considering that all the homes in that, on that same street have the exact same issue. I think it's negligible when you put it in context.
Plus the testimony established tonight shows you can get parking in the area.
Mhm.
It's not impossible to park.
Thank you, testimony.
Whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district.
And we're not really changing the physical conditions of the neighborhood, so.
And finally, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which is relevant, not determinative to your meeting.
Yes.
Yes,
But, they want to create a 2-family,
Mhm.
however,
they're doing this as of right, and then we are putting a restriction on them that applies to all the other homes in the area. And so for me, it's a 50-50.
Well,
Or
it's the
something.
character of the lot as well as an undersized lot. There's nowhere to put a driveway, so part of it does have to do with the site constraints.
Exactly.
All right, based on that, I think we're at least on the positive side of an approval. If I could get a motion to approve application for 131 Spring
And
Street.
should we just add the condition just to submit a corrected zoning worksheet that shows a variance between
Oh,
spaces,
that's
not
right.
4?
This is a.
Sorry to go back and
paperwork
forth
thing
again.
after
No
the
worries.
meeting. Yes, it'll save you from having to come back.
Yep.
Okay, good. So can I get a motion to approve with the condition that they just update the zoning worksheet to reflect what council and the village have come to a determination is 2 spaces as the requirement or the request, not 4.
Motion to approve, Brian, with, of course, with those conditions.
seconded Cory.
All right, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Okay, Michael Stoll,
Yes.
Brian Grana,
Aye.
Corey Black,
Yes.
Chair Everett.
Yes. All right, so how it works here is, Joe, we're gonna have a signed resolution in a couple weeks. They'll send paperwork, we're good to go.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, everyone.
And congratulations.
As an aside, it's a beautiful house.
Yeah,
Really,
thank you.
I think it would be.
We really love this house.
It is
Fantastic.
beautiful.
Good luck.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's a dream.
All right, next up on new business is ZBA 12-2025. This is 4 South Malcolm Street. Applicant is seeking variances for front, side, and both side yard setbacks for the proposed construction of a front porch and staircase. Upon reviewing this, I just want to give a heads up to the board that this is in line with prior staircase porch in-kind replacements that we've approved in the past. So we're very familiar with what you're asking for.
Unfortunately.
Yes, just to give you some background, we've requested, and it's currently on the agenda for the village to change the code for this so that you wouldn't have to come before us for things like this. So to save everyone time, I just have 2 questions. Just for your confirmation, are you replacing the porch in kind, like in the same footprint?
Correct, right.
And probably just updated or for safety reasons?
Yeah, it's kind of beyond
Dilapidated.
repair, so. we
Okay.
just-
I'm very
it's a-
sorry, would you mind introducing?
Oh, yes, I'm
yourself?
sorry. yeah. My name is Richard Vale. Anthony and Joanne Trino's architect.
Okay,
So yeah, when we assessed it, it wasn't worth, or it wasn't feasible to repair it as much as replace the base, the roof structures is salvageable, and our plan is to kind of, reinforce it, but work with it. But the footprint of the porch would remain the same. The railing will be a different style, an open railing, and instead of the kind of the
probably the
clunky-
current code.
Yeah, bring
Yeah.
bring the code, and the steps are really, not the code, so
So
bringing the code too.
the visual and safety improvement that brings it up to code
Mhm.
in kind.
Correct.
Okay. I have no questions.
And then the rest of are there other variances? It's just because of the existing?
It all relates to the front porch and staircase, front,
Okay.
side, and both side yards.
Okay.
Skinny lot.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, that makes sense.
It's a really small lot.
Yeah, 1708. And it's a
Right.
minimum of 7,500. All right, if there, can I get a motion to open the public hearing?
So move Mike.
Second is Brian.
There are no objections to opening the public hearing. It is open. Is there anybody here who would like to talk about 194 Spring Street? Oh, no, not 194 Spring Street.
Or South.
Or South Mountain Street. I didn't take notes on this one because there's nothing to take notes about.
I'm taking notes. don't worry.
Yeah. Hearing no objections, public hearing is open. Going once. All right, can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close public hearing, Brian.
Second, Corey.
All right, if there are no objections to closing the public hearing is closed. Could we get a roll call vote? Actually, can we go
We
through
should
the
do the
five?
factors.
Yep.
Move on to it. Okay. Whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by granting the variance.
No,
No.
Granted.
An improvement to the area.
If the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the variance.
no, it's a safety and code issue, so.
It's existing non-conforming.
Whether the variances are substantial,
Actually, I don't think they are.
they are,
Are they?
they're
The
large.
size, I think,
Oh.
yeah, definitely.
Numerically not impact.
Whether the variances would have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions of the neighborhood or district.
I don't think so.
It will enhance.
And whether the difficulty was self-created.
No.
Okay.
All right, looks like we're looking to have a motion approved here. So if I could get a motion, please.
Motion to approve. Brian.
Seconded Michael.
Brian and then Mike, and can we get a roll call vote, please?
Okay, Michael Stoll,
Yes.
Brian Grano,
Yes.
Lori Block,
Yes.
and Sharon Bruce.
Yes. So same thing as before, we have to do a signed resolution, Joe's office will end up sending you the paperwork, so you can start work.
Okay.
All right,
And Richard, you signed in, right?
I did, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks a
Thank you
lot.
both.
Thank you.
all right, moving on to continuing business of the board, we did have a request, JB, to bump you up on continuing business of the board due to a conflicting meeting. I just want to say that we'll do that tonight, but we've been getting in the habit of doing that. I don't want to do that as a reference in the future. All right, so we are actually looking at ZBA 06-2025, 194 Spring Street. Applicant is seeking an area variance for,
You were looking at 229 Spring Street, 07-2025.
oh wait, that's JB's?
Yeah.
Oh, you guys already
We already-
switched it.
We already switched it.
Sorry.
The one with the parking lot?
Yes.
And just so the board knows, you're not voting on this tonight. I'm
It's
sure
still secret.
the planning board's still doing secret. JB just wanted to show you updates.
He wanted to make sure we were good so that if there is back and forth, we can just shorten that.
Why don't you just refresh us on the previous
Yep.
discussion on this? I think we'll wait.
So let me read which one we're doing first, and then I'll do that. ZBA 07-2025 for 229 Spring Street. Applicant is seeking the following area variances as part of a proposed subdivision and construction of a new single-family residence. Minimum lot area, minimum lot width, minimum front yard setback, minimum side yard setback, parking in the front yard, and maximum impervious surface coverage. So based on our feedback last time, JB, it was a little bit in conflict with what the planning board was looking at. So I know that you went to the planning board meeting to kind of give an explanation of our thinking. Both council and you, and so the planning board agreed that they would align kind of what their thinking was with what ours is, and so you actually, correct me if I'm wrong, you enlarged one of the newer lot.
Yeah.
And shrunk the current lot.
Right, so we eliminated, even though it's not reflected in the zoning chart here, but we eliminated the parking in the front yard on the new lot. We enlarged that. They're not quite the same in size, but they're much closer in size and they're above the average in the neighborhood.
It brought you closer to
Yes.
what we were discussing with
And we,
not having all the front yard
and
parking.
we reduced the impervious coverage on the existing lot.
Well, the reducing impervious, I think it was a little less than 3%, right?
Well, part of it has to do with when you make the lot smaller, the proportion of impervious
Goes up,
coverage goes
yeah,
up.
yeah.
So like he did reduce the area of the parking lot.
Yes,
Mhm.
So even next time you come back, just quantify in square feet how much smaller the parking lot got.
Because we're gonna,
parking lot, yes.
that'll be our condition of approval anyway, if we don't see it on that paperwork, so.
You have to
Okay.
come back anyways.
I personally appreciate the work that you did, and I thank you both for going to the planning board to kind of explain that perspective, so I don't have any questions on this.
Okay.
as we discuss it. Anybody else? No.
No, I feel like it looks like it'll
I
be
know
in
you
line
had
with the,
impervious surface coverage questions last time.
yeah, no, but I feel like this will be more in line with the character of the neighborhood.
And it looks like you changed from 4 spots to tandem parking because of that
Yes.
shrinkage.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we asked them to do that.
Which, yeah, you guys have to do that.
Yep. I just wanted to put it on the record. All right, well, we can't open a public hearing tonight on this. We can't vote on it
Okay.
tonight. My individual perspective, I don't know, we can't tell you how we're gonna vote, but I think this is in line with what I asked for, Cory.
Yeah, agreed. I don't see any glaring issues.
I agree, I think probably the fourth is a good proposal.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
JD.
And thank you for.
Yeah, of course.
Just one thing. Before. I just don't want 131 to be in trouble. Did we open the public hearing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You did? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Then it was.
we started talking and then we did it, we started talking.
Okay,
and
I
we
just
went-
didn't want to.
No, I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
You said for 131? I
Yeah.
can tell you who made the motion to open, who made the motion to
Oh,
close.
no, I
Yeah, I was like, oh, no.
just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
You know, JP, there's room up here for you.
Yeah.
I can move.
You might have to recuse yourself from some applications. All right, so next,
Do we need to have a motion to adjourn this application?
Oh.
Yeah, Virginia.
oh, we do, yes. Could we get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to
49
adjourn.
Spring Street?
Brian.
Seconded, Cory.
All right, if there are no objections to adjourning this application, the application is adjourned. Sorry for the sound, Jamie, appreciate you. All right, next up on continuing business is ZBA 06-2025. This is for 194 Spring Street. Applicant is seeking an area variance for proposing to extend a non-conforming use by legalizing additional livable space in the basement for a 4-family house located in the 2-family zone district. Do you think I could give the board an update before the applicant speaks?
Yeah, sure. Vladimir, I see you have your hand raised. I'm going to
Let-
let the
Let's
chair.
let the applicant.
Okay,
just
okay.
Speak and then we can have a discussion from there.
All right,
Okay.
just kidding. Mr. Levin, you are on your way over as a panelist. When I bring you over, please unmute and turn on your camera.
Good evening, everybody.
Evening.
Should I speak or?
Yeah, we'll let you speak first. And so I think what the board will need to hear is what additional documents were submitted since we last saw you, and how it relates to the request that we had given you.
Yeah, so we did a FOIL request and we were able to get records that showed that there was a building permit issued in 2008 for legalizing habitable space on that lower level. And you have plans for that as part of the submitted public record. There were also 2 inspections done for that permit, a plumbing inspection and a concrete inspection. I'm not sure what that was about, but so there was a permit issued and there were inspections done for a project that involved finishing space on that lower level, which is exactly what the owner is looking to do now.
Okay, anything to add just before we pull up the new documents? Just to show the public and the board.
No.
Would you pull up the, I think it's 423, or the recent,
The plan.
the
Yeah.
plan, the FOIL request?
Oh,
So this is a copy of the building permit we had before. Can you go to the one, I think it's on yellow paper drawing.
Has the board all had a chance to review all of this? Like, do we all know what we're looking at here?
And I'll help by
Just
giving.
for context, so everyone knows.
No, not really, sorry.
So I looked at these, and I just want to point out something to the board. So one of the board's considerations and concerns was that we have this permit, but we didn't have any plans. So you got the plans and we can now see those. And our concern was before we saw the plans, that there was an illegal expansion of the non-conforming use in the basement that was not approved, and that turned out to be true. So if you look at these plans, you'll notice on the right side that storage is listed for about 1/3 of the basement. And upon inspection, that storage was illegally converted to living space. It was converted into what looked like bedrooms. Joe, is that correct?
Yeah, this plan does not match at what's currently there. So
So,
it has been altered since
so,
this was what was, if this is what was supposed to be constructed there.
so that was our concern, and it ended up that the plans submitted in 2008 that were approved were illegally expanded into additional living space. So what the complication is the applicant is pretty much asking the board to go back and approve something that might not have been approved in the past, because it would have been a substantial additional non-conforming use. And then on top of that, you want us to approve another greater than 10% expansion of non-conforming use in the space. And the new sizes of the apartments or the living spaces are dramatically above what's required. And so this, for me personally, became a difficult application to approve because there's already been an illegal expansion. And the owner, I think it's Mr. Alvarez, right?
Yes.
Mr. Alvarez is a licensed real estate agent. He's got several properties under his belt. That's something he should be aware of. And he bought the home in 2002. So he owned this home for 6 years before getting this permit and then illegally expanding the use. And so I'm just having trouble finding.
Well, even with that being said, if you look at this plan, it appeared this was 2008. He was the owner since 2002, and there's a section that says remove the kitchen cabinets. So therefore, I'm sure that this permit was for legalization because there must have been some sort of documentation or something that showed that they had an additional apartment down there, which was expanding the number of units. Because it says to remove the kitchen cabinets, refrigerator, etc.
Oh, no, we don't have a problem with the kitchen cabinets. We have a problem, well, I have a problem with the 3 storage spaces listed on the right side.
Well, what I'm bringing to the attention to that is during 6 years to when this was brought to the building department at that time, there was an apartment there. So, I mean, to me, the owner knows, the number of apartments he's supposed to have and so forth. So, and then now this plan shows one thing and what we have there currently is something totally different. So there's been a lot of alterations going on here, whether with this permit or without this permit. This permit has never been closed. The total number of inspections that needed to be done that were in the list of items to be done were not completed. There's no certificate of occupancy ever issued for this. And therefore, this permit is null and void anyway at this point, so.
Joe, as a condition for a certificate of occupancy, was the ceiling height of the basement a consideration?
I believe the ceiling height was an issue, and I believe that they had to go to New York State apply for a variance for the ceiling height and see if the state will issue one.
So, sorry, Corey, did you have something?
I was just gonna ask the applicant if that was the case, or if that's what the status of that is, or are you saying that was in the past?
That was in 2008.
Oh, okay.
It never had a certificate of occupancy. And I believe, based on what the plans now show, they would have had to go to New York State to get an exemption because the ceiling height was too low for the village to just issue a certificate of occupancy.
So we should
We don't have any record of any of that was applied for or approved.
It seems like it.
Well, Joe, what is the building code required ceiling height?
Currently, on the ceiling height for space is 6'8" with 6'4" drop downs.
Yeah, so the existing ceiling height, so I'm not sure what the variance was about in the past, but I documented the existing conditions and the ceiling height ranges from 6'8" to 7 feet.
But just going by the documentation,
Right.
I was not here in 2008, so I couldn't really tell you the whole story with it. I mean,
Yeah.
I can only make assumption that maybe some of those spaces were marked down for storage because probably the ceiling heights in there did not meet the minimum heights to allow them to create finished space there. Otherwise, I mean, why would they ask to make these particular rooms storage and other rooms habitable rooms?
I can't answer that. I can only say that I surveyed those spaces and, I documented them to be either 7 feet, between 6'8" and 7 feet in various locations.
And so the CO pretty much is kind of a sidebar anyway, because we don't get to determine that, but I did want to bring it up because it was a question that came out of reviewing the documents. I think the main concern is that that Mr. Alvarez illegally expanded what he was approved for. He was approved for the plan that we see in front of us right now, and he created additional living space that was not approved without a variance.
Didn't the
Yeah,
building,
and the other question I have, if the space down in the basement was always to be considered an extension of the apartments above there, where is the connection between the two? Because there is no staircase or anything that combines any of this space to upstairs. And I understand that in 2008, they issued a permit for this. But if the intent is that I'm only going to expand it, you know, where does that connect to what apartment?
just a family room, that's it. So if
Because
that's
you're
what-
proposing now to install new staircases, right?
Yes. Are you asking me a question? Is that a question to me?
No, I'm asking because I don't know in this one, like, this is not a very detailed plan, so I can't tell you, like, I know on the first floor, he has 2 apartments. So I don't know if this was, it's connected to one of the apartments, if this was supposed to be connected to a common area within the first floor, because I don't see where it was connected to.
Well, doesn't the revised layout plan show the staircases?
Well, he's proposing to install new staircases on the new plan.
The existing basement floor plan does show 2 staircases on either side for each unit.
But they're not in this plan, so it was never
Yeah,
approved.
so that wasn't approved. And by the way, there's also an additional bathroom down that wasn't approved either.
Right,
While we're at it.
and didn't the building permit expire at some point?
It's expired, so the whole really reason for this exercise is the applicant is requesting a substantial variance that really is not consistent with your prior precedent. And so, from the first meeting, the applicant presented that he previously received a permit to do this, never got a CO, just wants to legalize everything. So the board wanted to see what exactly was approved. And now we're finding that what he is proposing to legalize isn't what was approved back then. So that's where we are right now.
Yeah, the storage, which has been in other meetings for area variances that we've had, and some of the use variances, although we'll stick to area variances. One of the things we brought up is why do you need X amount of storage space in certain areas, and will that be converted into living space illegally later? And while we can't consider what someone may or may not do, the question is relevant, and in this case, it is what happened. The storage space was converted into additional living space, and it wasn't approved. The staircase and configuration was changed, that was also not approved. So yeah, sticky.
So you're essentially being asked to legalize something that was illegally done by the property
Right.
owner.
And then
And then
do an
that
additional
to-
expansion of non-conforming use on top of that.
So the board has to really consider what the precedential effect of this.
And we're only getting part of the story here because we're only being shown a basement plan. When it's being shown a first floor plan. So as a potential resident of this new basement apartment, how do I get from one floor to the other?
Those
What do I do in a matter of?
Yeah, so we do,
Fire,
we do have those. The thing is, they were never approved, so
Right.
They appear.
without approval, they turned storage into living space, and without approval, they changed the configuration to add staircases. They want us to legalize something that was never approved, and then on top of that, they want us to then approve this new
right,
apartment configuration.
So break it down for me really quick. If, how do I want to put this? If none of this stuff happened, they would have had what, 4 units? And that's legal?
They
There,
have currently they have 4 legal units in a 2-family zone district, so it's a pre-existing non-conforming use.
they're allowed to have the 4 units. The issue is that they extended 2 of the units into the basement, which requires a variance for extending the livable area more than 10%.
Okay, so here's what I get, like, that it's a huge precedent and everything, but it's the same, it's all existing, like, square footage. They're not expanding.
So I think that's something the board needs to discuss. You know, there are
Footprint of
2
house,
aspects of the impact here. There's no exterior work being done, I believe, so there theoretically aren't any external impacts on the character, on the neighborhood. You know, it's all interior, it's existing.
Yeah.
I think what the board needs to consider is what is the effect of this precedent that the board is setting by essentially allowing a homeowner to legally expand their non-conforming apartments.
And then just come back and
And then
say,
just
all
coming
right,
back
now
and
we'll just
legalizing
approve it
it.
because you already did it.
I think that's
That's-
the real issue for the board
Yeah.
to consider here. Because these are large variances. One variance is for 50.4 percent, I believe, and one is for 150 square
And
feet.
we have not, since I've been on this board, I don't even have to look at the record to know that we have not approved that percentage of expansion on any other place. So there's 2 things going on. One, we're just saying we're gonna increase what we're okay with in terms of
Right.
expanding non-conforming use, and we're saying, if we approve it, that you can illegally change what you did, it doesn't matter what you got approved for. And because it's been too long, we're just gonna approve it now to make things easier. That doesn't sit well with me. That's more of the issue.
I believe also, Karen, if you're correct, and often in these situations where somebody's expanding a nonconformity, it's usually because, we have a minimum apartment size of 800 square feet. And some people may, some property owners say, well, my current apartment is only 550. So although I want to expand it and it's beyond the 10%, in the end, when I expand the additional space, at least I'll have the minimum apartment size required by the code, which is 800.
You're bringing it closer to in line with the code, and in this case,
And in this case, you know, one of the first floor units is already 860 square feet, so that's compliant. The other unit is 504 square feet. So, you know, consistent with the board's prior precedent, you can come up to code even a little bit larger, you know, you're not super strict with the 800 cutoff.
but what is the new proposal? It's
But
over.
the new proposal, unit 1 would be 1,400 square feet and unit 2 would be 1,300 and
Yeah.
change square feet. So I think, again, it's the precedent I think the board needs to consider here.
Awkward silence. Silence is good sometimes.
And then I think the other thing the board should consider is, let's take the 2008 plan off the table for a second. Is this something the board would have approved, seeing it fresh? You know,
We haven't. We've had applications that have been larger than this and smaller than this.
Right.
And it's always situational because like you said, if we're trying to get them to 800 square feet and they're at 540, we make an exception for cases where you're bringing it closer to the code and you're bringing it in
Right.
line with the code. In this case, you're expanding it well beyond what the requirement of the code is. If we're ignoring the 2008 approval that was expanded.
And since the potential future use of the building is not within our control, to me, this welcomes taking this 4-family home and making it a 6-family home. I can't, it just screams out at me when I look at that basement.
Especially with the past. but
So, and you're right, and we can't, but again, that always informs, this application proved what we have had issues with in the, before, where we have 2 applications before us now where they have a lot of storage space. And we're like, why do you need that much storage space? And they have, based on the new documents that we have, they've significantly reduced the storage space. They brought it in line with the code. So there's no chance that it can be converted to
Yeah,
living
we had an
space.
application, which will remain nameless, but where there was gonna be a separate structure. And they wanted to put a full size, bedroom and,
Everything up top.
up top in a ridiculously large space. And obviously. It belongs well off.
And my personal bias aside, it's not whether we're trying to restrict homeowners from doing what they want or not want with their property. It's the whole purpose of codes and rules is to make sure that over time, neighborhoods, safety, character, grows together and things don't go off to the side. And if my concern is if we set a precedent that you can do whatever you want, legalize it later, and then on top of that, be like, and we also need some more, and it's not coming closer to code, it's going further away from it. This would be the first decision that we've done like that, and I just don't feel comfortable with it.
And I'd just like to point out, one of the reasons why this board has been particularly, I don't want to use the word strict, but careful with these kinds of variances. This is an expansion of a non-conforming use. That's really contrary. The whole purpose of non-conforming uses is to eventually phase them out and make them more non-conforming. So it really, in some way, does run contrary to the village's objectives to reduce and phase out these uses. And it undermines zoning by encouraging property owners to do something illegal, come back and get legalized later, when there's really no real hardship. It's not the zoning here that's creating the hardship, it's the applicant's work of finishing the basement,
I think based off precedent too, I mean, just.
You're here to be a relief valve from zoning where the zoning that's applied to the particular property owner. Because of
Well, we're not
hardship,
here to bypass.
but you're not
We're not here to make it easy to skirt the rules. We're here to be like, oh, that's a little too strict and what you're asking for is reasonable. In this case, I don't think it's reasonable. But that's just me. I want to allow the applicant to, speak again. I know that we have to have the public hearing before the applicant speaks again. Does anybody have any more questions that we haven't addressed? Okay. Mr. Levin, did you want to speak before we open?
Yeah, I would like to say that I think that the zoning ordinance is being misinterpreted in this case. The zoning ordinance clearly says that any non-conforming use can be expanded throughout any part of the building. Okay, so this, one second, if I could just get through. The basement of a house is intended for residential use, okay? So that first condition allows the basement to be used for residential purposes. The second condition in the zoning ordinance is not a limiting factor of the first one, but on the contrary, I think it's an additional allowance, which allows an addition to be made to the house, whether it's horizontally or vertically. And it clearly says so. It says, as long as it's in accordance with the dimensional regulations of the zoning ordinance. So not only can I expand into the basement, but I could also do in addition to the house, either vertically or horizontally, as long as it's within the setback, as long as it's within the coverage allowances, and as long as it's within the FAR allowances. And that's where that 10% comes into play.
So, Mr. Levin, just because we've previously had legal or council guidance on this, I want to give our land use council the opportunity to respond because this has been litigated before, and so I don't want to comment on why we're interpreting it the way we are.
actually, I'm gonna punt to Joe. Joe is the arbiter of the code, but also, if the applicant is welcome to submit a request for interpretation, but that's what the board is considering.
Yeah.
So let's let Joe weigh in.
Yeah, well, the interpretation that we've had all along is that you can't expand more than 10% of a nonconformity in any kind of living space, even whether it's in the basement, attic, or so forth. And it actually is calculated against the apartment in which you're increasing. So if you have an apartment that's 1,000 square feet, you get a one-time 10% increase to add 100 square feet to it. But if your interpretation that the applicant believes is that it's not being interpreted accurately, you can apply to the zoning board for an interpretation, and they can interpret that section of the code to see if what your interpretation is different than what the Village of Ossing's interpretation is. And that would be back in front of this board, and this board would make that decision.
totally a matter of how we're going to proceed.
We can either vote today based on the several months of document and the opportunities for the applicant to speak that we've had, or we can adjourn this and allow you the opportunity to request an interpretation.
I think that I would like to request an interpretation because it sounds like the board is ready to rule against this application. So I think I need to get an interpretation.
Also, there's a third option here as well. If, you know, again, putting this on the table, you're welcome to withdraw the application and reconsider the extent of the variance being requested.
That was kind of something I wanted to
Yeah,
was, you know, if we wanted to suggest something more in line with what we've seen in the past, which is, you know, maybe trying to get a unit that is undersized per code up to size or something like that, but not, you know, so egregious is what's being proposed right now.
But how do we get over the precedent setting of illegally expanding and then,
You'd have to come back, you'd have to see what they come back with, if they decide to come back, you know?
Yeah.
If
the
they-
one caution being that we can never preemptively tell you, oh, you know,
Of
yeah.
course not. I mean, every application is considered on its own merits, on its own facts. So I think under these facts, there are certain circumstances that warrant against a positive determination for the applicant. But if the variances were less significant, it changes the way the board can look at this.
So Mr.
The only thing I can say is, if you, to Mr. Levin, if you want to take this into consideration, in this particular case, you're looking at the section of the code, which is, non-conforming uses, 270-39, and it's under, enlargements F. And in this case, it would be in section 2, where it says a non-conforming single-family, two-family, or multi-family dwelling may be enlarged or extended in accordance with the dimensional regulations specified for the district in which it's located, so as long as such enlarged or extended portion shall not exceed more than 10% of the livable residential floor area in the dwelling unit in existence on the date on which the use became non-conforming. So I don't, it's 10% of that particular unit, right? And it says specifically in here, maybe enlarged and extended in accordance with the dimensional regulations. It does say that, but in this case, you're only allowed to expand 10% of a livable floor area. So if your basement is considered uninhabitable and is not livable space, and you're creating that into livable space, that's the increase that you're making of that apartment. Because it was essentially, if your basement is uninhabitable and it's not in this case, they have a storage space, which is not considered livable space. So if you're intending to increase that livable space of that dwelling unit from 800 square feet to 1,400 square feet, that's more than a 10% increase of livable floor area.
but that is what I'm saying is the misinterpretation of the ordinance. The enlargement or extension that's being referred to is not an enlargement or extension within the existing building. The enlargement or extension that's being referred to there is an addition, whether beyond the footprint of the existing building. So it's an actual addition. So it's that addition that's being limited to 10%.
So
But it doesn't specifically say addition. So that's the interpretation. That would be the section of the code that you would be asking this board to interpret.
Yeah, well, it says enlargement or extension, and the fact that it goes on to say enlargement or extension in accordance with the dimensional regulations. So what dimension?
But those dimensional regulations could be the total livable square footage that you need to provide for a dwelling unit.
So I need to cut us off, guys, because we're litigating. We are not here for that. And Mr.
No,
Levin,
it's not a litigation. I'm just giving him the section of the code that he can consider, and if he wants to go forward into an interpretation, he could do that, but that would be the section that he's applying for. And he would have to apply for that through the planning department to put it, you know, I don't think you could just say you want interpretation now. I think he has to file for an interpretation.
So I sort of equate this to taking the second floor of this particular building, putting a stairway there, leading up to the attic, and then taking the attic and blowing it out with a dormer and putting 2 or 3 bedrooms up there. That is
Yeah.
not, that's what it looks like to me. The same thing.
Yeah. Yes, because that would be a literal increase in the habitable floor space. If you take the attic, put a dormer there, that's an addition. Just like if you were to add to the side of the house, that would be a similar addition. That's 10% limiting factor.
so tonight, you have 3 options. I want to give the applicant an opportunity to choose what they want to do. On behalf of the applicant, Mr. Levin, do you want us to vote tonight? Do you want to withdraw your application and resubmit it with changes? Or do you want to start the request for an interpretation process?
Well, if you're going to vote favorably, I'd like you to vote.
Can't tell you how we're
I
gonna.
think if the board is so inclined, the board can do a straw poll.
All right,
If the board is so inclined, it's not a binding vote. It gives the applicant an idea of where the
Okay.
board's at.
we'll do a straw poll. I'll go last. We don't need to be formal about that, right?
No.
Okay. If we were to vote on this application tonight informally, how would you vote?
I would vote no.
No.
No, it's too egregious.
And I would also vote no. So that's your straw poll vote. So you can choose one of your 3 options.
Okay, so the option where we reduce the amount of space that's being finished or converted to habitable space, would the board be more agreeable if we went back to the previously approved plan where those 2 front spaces were called storage?
I don't know if can we even discuss this
So
like
I
that?
think, let me try to sum up the board's concerns as I understand them. The variances you're requesting they're numerically substantial and they're not consistent with the board's prior decisions. And based on these facts, the board isn't really seeing a reason to deviate from its precedent. You should consider, you've got 2 units, 1 unit already meets code, 1 unit is very undersized. I think you need to take a step back and reconsider a more realistic percentage of the expansion. Did I get that
Because,
right?
yeah, in our eyes, we're not, that plan never happened, right? Like, so we're not looking at any expansion into the basement at all whatsoever. You're starting from 0 down there, and that's a significant ask. So that's, I think, why we're saying to look at it from that perspective. And I know you've been trying to argue that there's been work already done in the basement and approved, but it hasn't. It hasn't been final, it hasn't been CO'd, so we can't take that into consideration.
Mike?
I'm thinking about one possible alternative. It's not up to us to determine alternatives, but I recently looked at a house in Sleepy Hollow and it had the first floor of the house, which would normally be the garage, was a separate, with its own separate entrance apartment, which had no connection to the 2nd and 3rd floor.
They got in trouble for it previously, didn't they? They had extra units in the basement.
Yeah.
They received violations, I believe, for having.
Yeah, we don't want, we can't create additional units.
Okay.
That would require a use variance to
That
do
would
that route.
require another use variance, yeah.
Use variances are
Difficult.
very
Yeah.
difficult.
So I think it goes back, your options really are, the board can proceed with a formal vote. You can request an adjournment and request an interpretation at the next meeting, which may or may not, I guess, go in your favor, or you can amend your application to reconsider the basement layout and the extent of the variance is being requested.
But what's really important is that the prior approved plan was never followed and wasn't fully CO'd. So you have to treat the basement like, Corey was saying, as though we're starting from scratch, because in effect, we are.
If
I-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
You can go.
If I request an interpretation and I lose that argument, can I then make a resubmission for a, you know, I guess a reduced scope of work?
So it would, yes, it would behoove you, I would think, to submit a revised plan set at the time you request an interpretation. So even if things don't go your way, the board can consider those plans at that meeting. So you don't lose.
So even if we may have questions, we see a revised plan and we still have questions, you just saved yourself another meeting. If we need you to go back to the drawing board because you've done two for one. You've done two things at the same time.
Okay, that sounds like a good plan. Who's charged with the interpretation of the zoning ordinance if I do request that? Is it the board members or the zoning board member?
It's Joe.
No, I would, my interpretation, they can challenge my interpretation, but if he decides to submit to an interpretation, it would go back to the board for it to interpret.
So I think the second interpretation I would see, it doesn't happen very often. But Joe has to make his case to us. We discuss with him, we read the code as it's written, discuss it, and then decide.
Okay. Has anyone ever challenged this interpretation of the zoning ordinance in the past, as I am doing now?
This particular code section, not during my tenure with the board.
Same.
I'm not sure, Joe, if you've ever had.
No, not this particular section. People have asked for interpretations of other sections of the code, but not this particular one.
Okay, so I would like to then request an interpretation of this section of the code based on the argument that I put forth. And I'd like that, I guess, to happen at the next meeting, at which time we will also submit a revised basement floor plan with a reduced scope of work.
So heard, and I think we can vote on adjourning your application. Do we have to open the public hearing?
We
Adjourn
could
it?
open it and
Okay.
adjourn it.
We're gonna quickly open the public hearing. We'll vote on adjournment based on the board's votes. And then you'll have to reach out to Joe's office, right? To start
You
the
have to
process.
reach out to the planning department and speak to Jamie Kane. She'll give you the paperwork and what's necessary for filing for an interpretation.
Yeah, and Jamie's our board secretary. She's on right now, so she's aware of it, but it is still upon you to reach out to her.
You have to actually apply for it,
Yeah.
so it can get noticed and everything.
And so
Is-
the sooner you
is-
do that, you don't miss the deadline for the next meeting.
Is Jamie the person speaking off camera?
Now, I'm Taryn.
Oh, okay.
Karen's our assistant land use counsel.
Okay. Okay,
So could I get a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion to open the public hearing, Brian.
Second, Michael.
If there's no objections, public hearing is now open. We have no one left in person, so if there's anyone online who needs to speak on this application, just a reminder, this is for 194 Spring Street. Please raise your virtual hand by clicking the icon on the bottom of your screen. All right, I don't see anybody, so I'm gonna ask for motion to adjourn the public hearing.
Motion to adjourn, Corey?
Seconded, Brian.
If there are no objections to adjourning this until our next scheduled meeting, this public hearing is adjourned. And could I also follow that with a motion to adjourn this application?
Motion to adjourn the application, Brian.
Seconded, Michael.
All right, if there are no objections to adjourning, we are adjourning this application until our next regularly scheduled meeting. Mr. Levin, thank you for the back and forth. Just a reminder for the record that you're gonna have to reach out to the planning department, Jamie Kane, to apply for this interpretation. And as recommended by Taryn, the land use council, possibly submitting your alternative plan at the same time, so you can save yourself a meeting.
understood.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening or night. or-
Next up on continuing business is 133 State Street here.
Yes.
Yep, I see hand. Okay. Next up is ZBA 08-2024. This is for 133 State Street. Applicant is seeking approval for the proposed construction of a two-family house. Requires area variances for front yard, side yard, both side yards, rear yard, maximum building coverage permitted, maximum impervious surface coverage permitted, and maximum number of stories. So as a reminder, this has been before us for several months. Our main comments were about impervious surface coverage, parking and use of the storage space in the basement or the ground level area, and the ceiling height or the roof height as appearing from the street. And I believe based on the documents you submitted, if you could just highlight the changes.
I believe just the correction that the variance is for the number of stories and not the height of the building.
The height and stories, yeah,
Oh, height and stories, but they were good for height.
but they're good in height and feet.
Yeah.
Your code requires feet and stories.
Oh, Stephen, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Good evening, members of the board. Stephen Venerusso here on behalf of the applicant. I can't see who else is in the meeting, but I should be joined by the applicant as well as the architect, as well as part of our resubmission to the board was a letter and some real estate listings from Teresa McManus, licensed broker with Coldwell Banker. I'm not sure if all three of them are on or some of them.
Over Victor and Eduardo. They should be with us shortly. I don't see any other hands. Oh, now I see iPhone. All right, hang on one second.
Okay. So while they're joining, Victor Mejia is one of the property owners. Eduardo Gallarza, the architect on the project. And as I mentioned, Teresa McManus with Coldwell Banker. So just to kind of the overarching changes that were submitted. So a couple things were submitted to the board. A rendering was prepared for the building. I would note, I believe it's noted in one of the letters, there was some thought given by the applicant to making the roof pitched to match the houses adjacent on the other side. However, that it just became, it wasn't feasible. And it also would have added to our height problem or would have created a height problem. The building height as it stands right now is beneath the code. So I just wanted to let the board know there was consideration to that to try and have it match the adjacent properties. In addition to the rendering, Mr. Gallarza's updated plans were submitted. I can let him walk you through or respond to any questions that the board may have on those plans. I would just point out notably the biggest changes, I think in response to some of the back and forth we had with the board on previous meetings was the parking. So after consideration, speaking to the applicant, speaking with the design team, we're able to design this in a way that all 4 cars would park in the garage. You would have no parking in front of the house as needed. All 4 cars could fit in the driveway. The driveway was amended by Mr. Gallarza to pervious surface, which reduced our total impervious surface. We were at 78 previously and down to 47 for the entire site. And lastly, as I mentioned, Teresa McManus is a licensed broker with Coldwell Banker. She had submitted a letter on the applicant's behalf detailing her thoughts on the bedroom sizes, which Ms. McManus is, I would welcome the opportunity to let her speak tonight and give her, expertise and professional opinion on the bedroom sizes. The only thing I would note just prior to any comments on that is the original design of the building and the original thought on the building was to keep it as much both the front of the building and the rear of the building in line with the adjacent properties. So, we would submit on behalf of the applicant that, despite perhaps any disagreement that the board may have regarding the bedroom sizes, that not only do they match what the market is calling for, they match the overall footprint of the building matches the character of the neighborhood. So with that, Mr. Galarza can jump into any of the changes, or if the board would prefer, we're happy to respond to any questions that the board has.
Thank you. I think just going over the changes first would be helpful to make sure everyone's on the same page.
Sure, Mr. Galarza?
Hello, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, I guess we what we submitted was the changes that include the 4 parking spaces within the plans. That's one part that's on drawing and the proposed drawings right there. You see on the right-hand side.
Oh, it takes time. Yeah.
That's not the correct.
Yeah,
set of
that's
plans.
not the update ones. Those are the old ones.
Revised submission,
Okay,
yeah.
sorry, that's where I was at first.
And go down a while, they come in. There we go. It's on that page.
Hang on,
You're doing amazing.
hang on, hang on.
That's
Okay.
it.
It would be underneath
You
the
can see
structure.
now, we placed the 4 cars, the required 4 cars within the ground space, the ground floor.
And it looks like you still get your storage space at the rear.
Yeah, we have some storage space on the back.
Just so the board's aware, this eliminated the need for a variance for parking in the front yard.
And then the second thing, I actually had a question. I saw the pervious pavers at the front of the unit. Can you talk about the walkways on the side of the
Yes.
structure?
Yeah, we decided to have, since the argument was it was a large pervious area, because we have all the walkways and the driveway as concrete at the beginning, all concrete, solid concrete. We decided to do all the walkways around the building, plus the driveway, to do pavers, either brick or stone pavers. And I provide a detail of the installation on page P100, because I didn't have any other space somewhere.
No, on the plans, okay.
And that's over there. Yeah, it has the details right there on the left side, center right there, right?
Or back to Joe.
A little bit upwards, a little bit upwards. Right there. Permanent papers for residential application. That's a typical detail that is used for this type of uses. So
Okay.
that, in that sense, we reduce the previous area to
30%, yeah.
it's 44%, I guess.
We were previously at the entire project 78%, and we're at approximately 47.4 now.
47, that's right,
Yeah,
down from
perfect.
78.
I'm sorry, pervious.
Which
So,
is based
yeah.
on our, it's much more in line with what we previously approved on other properties.
And the board should note, this is an undersized lot. So.
Yeah.
Constraints associated with
Correct.
that.
All right.
So based on that, basically, that's the only issues that we have. We already resolved the issue with the height of the building. Now the 3 stories is probably up to you guys to make a decision, unless there's any questions regarding any other issue that you might have.
So I want to ask the board informally, when we were discussing bedroom sizes, I think it was less about, do you need that large of a bedroom? And is there another way to reduce impervious surface
Right.
coverage and move the cars? And so we were looking at everything. And so I don't think, for me,
Yeah.
the bedroom size is not an issue when you make the changes that you made.
Okay.
So I view
Understood.
that-
Understood.
That's fine.
I think because we have been before the board several times, we're very mindful of the comment, and I understand the connection between the two, but I just wanted to cover our bases, and if there was any lingering concern regarding the overall footprint or anything else, that there was a method to the madness, so to speak.
I personally don't have any additional questions. Does anybody,
Yeah, I'm taking a look at the photo here of the building online.
the rendering?
Yeah, 133 State Street, it looks like it's a very narrow front lawn on it before you get to the sidewalk. If you put that underground parking underneath the building itself, will the driveway extend onto the curb?
No,
No.
there's plenty of space underneath on the ground floor. We have to dig a lot of earth from there to make all the cars fit.
But there's enough width, okay, gotcha.
Yes, it is enough width. We need 18 feet wide and we have like 18'6".
Yeah. My biggest concerns were parking and impervious, so that's why for me, I feel.
Yeah.
I just have a quick technical question for you, Eduardo, Mr. Galarza.
Yes.
So I noticed when you had that detail for the pervious pavers, you have drainage underneath there. Where is the intent to divert that stormwater to?
Well, if we have the drainage over there, it should go to the sewer system, I guess, to the
That's
streets.
why that's the question. So do you have, your intention is with that drainage is to connect into the village's stormwater system?
That's correct.
Okay. That's always a possibility. That's why I asked that question. Because I know the property size is not that big, and to try to retain all the stormwater on the property could be difficult.
That's correct.
All right. Any other questions? Okay. Do you guys have any other things to add? I think we're good with questions on this end.
No, we don't at this time, unless Victor, you have anything on your end.
No, I'm okay.
We get a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion to open the public hearing, Brian.
Seconded Michael.
All right, if there are no objections to opening the public hearing, public hearing is now open. The only person I see in person or online that's not here is one of our trustees, Mr. Bob. I don't know if you have comments or if you're just watching. Well, Bob Pritchie, Mr. Pritchie.
Trustee Pritchie.
Trustee Pritchie, I'm sorry. Still new with the titles. All right, hearing none, could I get a motion, because I think we're prepared to vote tonight. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
So we'll close the public hearing.
Good, Corey.
So we got we got Mike and Corey. If there's no objections to closing, public hearing is now closed. 5 factors, please.
I just want to ask one quick question, just for paperwork purposes. Is the bulk table on sheet T00, that's correct and up to date, right?
It is, yeah, it is correct, except for a little mishap probably with the building height, which is 30. I had it like 31.6, actually 28.6, and also the other one, which is 44%. The building coverage is 44 instead of 43.7.
So, Taryn, to your point, is the entire zoning worksheet updated to reflect the changes?
That'll need to be a condition of approval.
That, I was just gonna say, we'll just vote.
That's correct.
We would give you conditional approval based on updating the paperwork, which is not coming to another meeting.
I just want to confirm that when I solution that I'm using the correct figures, the board grants the correct variances. So just to confirm, coverage, the new coverage is 43.7.
44%.
44%?
That's correct.
Okay, because there's a discrepancy between the cover letter and the table, that's why I asked. So building is 44, and then impervious is 47,
Correct.
and then that should be it, because it's the height and stories, not the height and feet, that's that issue.
And parking's been removed.
And
because it's
parking's been removed, the
structure.
setbacks haven't changed, correct?
Correct.
Just to jump in, the cover letter does say 44% for building coverage and then 47.4 for total impervious.
See 43.7 for building coverage, but it's okay, we have the same numbers now, so we're square.
Okay, okay.
Condition of approval, we're just gonna ask that you submit a revised zoning worksheet that lists all the variances as corrected, just so everyone's paperwork is on the same page.
We'll do that.
Understood.
Cool. All right, 5 factors.
5 factors, please. Thank you.
That's what you said.
No, I appreciate it.
So Again, the first factor the board must consider in its balancing test is whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by granting the area variance.
It's been an open lot for a long time and it was a dilapidated house for many years. So I think it's gonna be a big improvement, especially given the fact that they've taken the feedback about parking on a street where parking is an issue.
I do want to note that it is a change to the design aesthetic, which I'm personally in favor of. But I just wanted to bring that up. It's a slight change to the character of the neighborhood because the setback is correct, but it is a square rectangular building. However, it's also across from Sing Sing. So I mean, regardless, I think it's an improvement.
And also, I believe there is one letter in support from one of the neighbors.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
It's been a little while. Okay. The next factor is whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than variances.
The applicants, we've been going at this for a few months. Alternatives were preferred based on the own testimony from the applicant about the non-feasibility of dramatic changes to this. I would say that there is no feasible alternative, the size of the lot.
Yeah, it's an undersized lot.
Yeah,
Whether the variances are substantial.
impervious is no longer substantial. The parking variance is gone and building coverage. I actually don't think it's numerically or impact significant
Yeah.
anymore.
It's 14%, so 30 is
Well,
permitted, so.
Yeah, it's significant because it's almost 50% of what's there,
The
but
impacts aren't.
the impacts aren't there because it's in line with what's currently on the adjacent lots.
It's a very small lot.
Welcome, Dawson.
Whether the proposed variances will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district.
I'm gonna say no specifically with request, or because of the impervious coverage change, that actually brought it much more in line with physical environmental considerations, so I appreciate that.
And finally, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which is relevant to the board's decision, but not necessarily just dispositive.
No, not now.
Well, I mean,
Yes.
they could do a smaller
They-
home
they-
that would fit all the things, so it is, created by them, but at the same time, the size of the lot tends to lend itself to need some assistance.
So,
In part, what it sounds like.
based on what I heard from the discussion, it looks like we're gonna motion for an approval. So could I get a motion to approve with the condition that paperwork is updated for everyone to reflect max building coverage for 44% and impervious surface coverage for 47.4%.
But a whole new zoning worksheet that just shows everything.
Yeah, the new zoning, because we only have the original zoning worksheet, so just checking everything to make sure the numbers are correct. Approval conditioned upon that.
Understood.
So with that in mind, motion to approve.
Motion to approve, Brian.
Second, Cory.
All right, roll call, please.
All right. Michael Spall,
Yes.
Brian Granoff,
Aye.
Corey Block,
Yes.
and Chair Everett.
Yes. All right. You're finally at the end of the road, I think. We're just gonna wait for the resolution for Joe's office to get you what you need, but then on our end, you're good to go.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Have a
Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks,
Teresa.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
That is the end for tonight. So if you guys. Turn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn the meeting, Brian.
Seconded, Michael.
All right, hearing no objections. Meeting adjourned. Thank you so much.
Thank
Good night,
you.
everyone. Thanks, Joe. Thanks,
Night.
Julie.
Thank you.
Good night.